Hi students, this is Ms. Cave with a continuation of our video part 2 for rate of change, our SOL 710, so 710A as we recorded yesterday. So we're going to continue. Yesterday we learned how to find slope and we also looked at an example of rate of change, and today we're going to learn how to interpret unit rate as slope, because slope, another name for slope is unit rate, another name for unit rate is slope. So we're going to come up here. We've been calculating unit rates, a rate in which the second quantity in the comparison, so a unit rate is a ratio. It's comparing two quantities. The first quantity can be anything, but the second quantity has to be what if it's a unit? How much is a unit? 1. That's right. The comparison is 1 unit. That's why it's called a unit rate. So for this example, if I have 120 bottles in 6 cases, I want to know how many bottles I would have in one case. So to find the unit rate, you could set up a proportion, or you could simply divide the bottles by the cans. So in this one, I'm going to take 120 bottles and divide it by those 6 cases, and that means I have 20 bottles per case, and that's my unit rate because it's one case. Very simple to find the unit rate. That unit rate is also your slope. If we were to graph that, the slope would be 20 because that's how much it is for one. The second example, we have $84 for 4 books. Again, we're going to simply divide our money by the 4 books so we can get the price per book. And then 84 is divided by 4 is 21. So this means it's $21 per book. That's our unit rate. This is a review. You guys did a lot with unit rate in 6th grade. But now we call it not only unit rate, but we also call it what? Slope. It's also our slope. And you'll notice that here we're going to look at some graphs where we're calculating the unit rate as slope. So what about 60 pencils in 5 packages? Go ahead and try that one. So 60 pencils in 5 packages. What am I going to do for that? Divide 60 by 5. So you have your 60 pencils. You divide by the 5 packages. And so how many pencils are in one package? So 12 pencils per package. And then our final example here would be miles per hour. And we talked about miles per hour when we were doing our constant proportionality, which is going to be the same thing as our unit rate, which is the same thing as our slope. So if I can travel 420 miles in 7 hours, how many miles can I travel in 1 hour? What's 420 divided by 7? 70. Good. 420 divided by 70 means my mileage is 70. I'm going to go ahead and abbreviate it so you guys can get used to that MPH. That's miles per hour. If you're on the highway, you'll see signs that say MPH. That's how fast you're allowed to go in your car. 65, 70 miles per hour is usually our 95 highway miles per hour. So this person, depending on where they are on 95, may or may not be speeding. I know it drops to 65 in certain areas around here. Sometimes it's 60. Okay, well this person is definitely not speeding on X95. In fact, this person needs to get over to the right because I'm behind them and they need to get over to the right because I want to go the speed limit, not below. All right, thanks for pointing that out. All right, so now we're going to look at it as unit rate. I can get the unit rate by looking at a graph. I can do it by finding a point on the graph. So let's look at the first one. I can find the point on the graph where the time is 1. You see that? So if I find this, I look at where it meets this. And so what's my unit rate? Do you guys see it? If you find how many miles it is in 1, that's your unit rate. So this would be 50 miles per hour. So your slope is 50. Okay? So that's one way you can do it. I could also look at 2 points on the graph. Like I could look at this point and this point. If I go up 50, my rise over 1, I go over 1. You see that? That's the rise over run, which is 50 over 1, which is also 50. It's the same thing. So you can find it on a graph by looking at the y value when you have x is 1, or you can make your little triangle like we did yesterday in class. So let's look at number 6. So this time we want to know how much it is for 1 week. That's going to be our slope. So to find that, I look at where it meets on the y. So how many books would I read, because that's what it says here, how many books would I read in 1 week? Do you guys see where it meets? 3. It meets at 3. So this would be 3 books per week. So my slope is what? 3. It's my unit rate. If I wanted to find this using the triangles, look at this. If I wanted to do it, remember we could just find 2 points on the graph like I showed you yesterday, and you do rise over run. See that? Rise over run. So you have 1, 2, 3. That's going to be 3, and then that's over 1 again. You see that? So you have it again, your rise over run, just showing you 2 different ways and connecting them, is 3 over 1, so slope is equal to 3. Make sense? 2 different ways you can find it on a graph. All right, let's take a look at number 7. So number 7, look what happens on number 7. It's kind of hard to tell on number 7 where that line, you see how it's in the middle at 1, a little less than the middle. So to get an exact answer there is going to be difficult. So I'm going to use my rise over run instead for this one. So what you're going to need to do is find 2 points on the line. So I'm going to take this point, any of them where they meet the corner here. See that? I'm going to take those 2 points. I'm going to calculate my rise over run. So my rise, okay, it's not 1. Do you guys see what the rise would be? It's actually 8 because you're going from 8 to 16. So your rise is going to be 8. And then you're going over, looking at this, 2, 3, 4. How much am I going over? If I'm going from 2 to 4. 2. So that's 2. So this is going to be 8 over 2. So your slope is equal to what? 4. You just divide. Make sense? So that's what you can do when it's not easy to see the value of y when x is 1. All right, let's look at the last example where we have tickets and cost. Again, if you look at 1, it's kind of hard to see. It's between 30 and 60, but I can't tell. So instead, I'm going to grab 2 points on my graph. I'm going to grab this point and this point because they go in the corner of that square. They hit the exact right place. So I'm going to calculate my rise over run, and I go up, let's see, 90 to 180. So what's 90 to 180? How much is that? 90 plus what is 180? 90. Good. So I'm going to go up 90. So my rise is 90. And then I'm going to go over what? 2. So what's 90 divided by 2? Oops, sorry. There you go. Thank you. What is 90 divided by 2? Anybody got that for me? 45. Okay? So now we have a really good example of how to find unit rate, or also known as slope, on a graph. You can do it with your slope triangle, or you can also do it by finding the value of y, your vertical axis, when x, or your horizontal, is 1. Let's go ahead and take a look at example 9. Got a couple more minutes. You guys good? All right. Example 9, we have Sarah. Sarah drove at a rate of 3 miles every 6 minutes. This is not a unit rate, right? Because how many minutes is it telling us? 6. And if I wanted a unit rate, how many minutes would I need? 1. Okay, unit rates are 1. But I can use that to figure out my table. So I can look at the relationship between miles and minutes. Okay, so it looks like this is from 3 to 6 is what? Times what? Times what? 2. So if miles to minutes is times 2, if I have 6 minutes, how many miles would it be? Not 12, 3. It's the reverse, right? So it's going to be times 2 this way. So then what would 12 minutes be? 6. And then 9 would be how long? 18. And then 12 would be 24. So we've got that constant of proportionality. And then 30 would be what? 15. So if we graph the relationship, we notice that time is x, distance is y. Okay. What do you guys think the constant of proportionality is here? Or the slope? So far, what does it look like? It looks like 2. Okay, so let's go ahead and check to see if that's right. So I'm going to take my units here, 6, 3. So 2, 4, 6, 2, 3. And then I have 12, 6, 12, 2, 4, 6. And then I have 18, 9, 12, 14, 16, 18. Wow. And then it's going to take me up here. Okay, and so I'm going to go ahead and just draw my line because I know they're all going to lie on that. So if I graph that relationship, I want you guys to take a look at, let's see if we can calculate the slope. So I just put 3 of the points. I just graphed these 3 so far. And so if I find my slope, if I go up, say from here, from my 0, 0 point to here, okay, how much did I go up to get from 0 to 3? 3. And then how much did I get over to get from 0 to 6? 6, right? You guys see that? I went up 3, I went over 6. So in this one, if I look at my rise over run, slope as rise over run, my rise is how much? 3. My run is how much? 6. 3, 6 simplifies to what? 1/2. So my relationship is a times 2 when I'm going from distance to miles, or distance to minutes, but going from minutes to distance, it's actually dividing by 2, which is the same thing as multiplying by 1/2. So when we calculated our rise over run this way, we saw that it was 3/6, which simplifies to 1/2. So what that means is our unit rate is 1/2 mile per minute. Okay, so as long as you're calculating your rise over your run, you'll get 1/2 instead of 2. So you got to be really careful with that. Just finding the relationship isn't always enough. You've got to look to see which is x and which is y to come up with your relationship. All right, and that is it for interpreting unit rate as slope. Have a great day.